Ohio, into cities like Youngstown and Warren that had double-digit unemployment. To see the progress and all the people working and the enthusiasm. I often refer to Carrollton, which is the county seat in Carroll County, as a beehive. And I think Governor Bryant talked about, it might have been Governor Herbert, talked about the coffee shops and that being packed. That's the way they are now. And it's really nice to see that and people supporting this industry on all ends. So thanks for Jobs Ohio and what everything you're doing. Now we'd like to continue our talk with Ohio EPA Director Craig Butler. Craig has been the director not quite a year yet, but before that he was working for the governor's office and actually OD&R's liaison to the governor. So he was very, very familiar with the oil and gas industry and the challenges. He's been with EPA for many, many years, and we're really fortunate to have someone with a level head and common sense running Ohio's EPA. Please welcome Craig Butler.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Jim. I didn't know I had a level head, but it's good to know. So I may throw a little bit of an audible here, too. Can I get you to go to my last slide first? No. Keep going. Which one? The one on communication. Next one. There you go. We'll go backwards.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I thought I'd just give you a sense, you wonder maybe the guy from EPA at an oil and gas conference feels like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs, but that's not the case. And the reason is, and I've been, as Jim had mentioned, I worked at EPA for almost 20 years before I went to work on the governor's staff. And, there's a whole lot of jobs you can have when you work at EPA. You can write permits, you can do compliance inspections. I didn't have any of those jobs. And while I do have a technical background, my real focus at EPA and the passion that I had at EPA was how do we assist Jobs Ohio, economic development, how do we bring jobs to Ohio, how do we help keep jobs in Ohio through the jobs and the mission that we do at Ohio EPA. So we have a long history of working really collaboratively with our business development and our business organizations within the state of Ohio. So much so that we've always had, and we've continued to build this, and it's one of the strong focus that I've got now coming back as director, is we've got an office within our senior staff that is really a business development office. And the real sole focus of that is working with our business development leaders early so that we can come to the table really as a package and come not only as being able to describe what our environmental regulatory processes are, but really focus on that and bring it to the table as a positive benefit to development, for economic development. So we took the same approach with oil and gas. And I heard Jim talk about how many permits you guys issue or have come in a week. And you'll get a sense, can I get you to go back to the front? Thank you. We talk a lot about streamlining permitting. Both governors talked about the need to make sure that our agencies work together, as well as we work across state lines, as well as we internally look at how do we get rid of regulatory structures that we just don't need. So we have gone through this process on streamlining permitting around oil and gas, and it was precisely because we knew if we didn't find a easier way, a better way, a more efficient way to permit these operations in Ohio, we would never be able to keep up. So we went through a permitting strategy where we looked how to streamline that permit. The mechanism that we found that works really well, and we've had a long history of using general permits in the state of Ohio, was to develop a general permit for the oil and gas, development of oil and gas. This was in 2014. We've revised that general permit, and really it provides us not only the flexibility, but you all flexibility to move your operations very rapidly. So you're not needing to wait around 90 days, 120 days for an individual permit. If you do qualify for the general permit, and we do a lot of customer outreach to make sure we get the parameters of general permits right, but if you can comply with the components of a general permit, you simply notify Ohio EPA that you're going to work under the general auspices of that general permit, and then it really takes that encumbrance off of you to have to come back and get an individual permit. You can then work with Rick and his team at the oil and gas department and go about your business. So to date, we've got, it says 245, I think we're up to about 337 general permits. So in Oklahoma parlance, that's about 3 days, maybe 3 days worth of permits, or 3 weeks worth of permits that you've got. So we obviously knew that we're in the early phase of development, but if we didn't have these structures in place, we were going to become an impediment, and that's not exactly where we wanted to be. It doesn't mean that our general permits are easy. It means that our general permits include some of the toughest equipment detection provisions in the country. So you've heard a lot about Colorado. You may have heard some about Wyoming on how you handle leak detection and repair. Ohio is at the point where we're probably one of the 3 states that are at the forefront of looking for leak detection and repair component. We've taken a slightly different strategy as those in Colorado. And I call it euphemistically some way kind of buying your way to freedom program, if you will. So you're basically going to go through and do a quarterly reporting. If you have less than 2% of all of your touch points, your leak detection points, if you have less than 2% of those leaking, you can move that to every 6 months. You can actually go to a year. If you ever find yourself at a point where you have a leak detection rate above that 2%, it'll bring you back to quarterly. You also have requirements to fix those leaks. It's common sense to you all, and it's somewhat common sense to us. You want to keep the product that you're bringing out of the ground. You want to put it to productive use. So we're letting you use not only this forward-thinking kind of philosophy, but also use new equipment and tools. You can use infrared technology. You can even schedule tomorrow. You could go out and do your own leak detection system, and then Wednesday do your official leak detection. In the meantime, if you're above that 2% rate, if you fix those leaks, that's what's important to us. Go out and do your own monitoring, fix those leaks, and report it to us to help you get back and keep that product that you brought out of the ground and put it into productive use. We're also moving with the new green completion rules that US EPA is putting into place, and we're going to incorporate those into a permit rule, which is a slightly different approach than our general permit, but it's also key on flexibility and getting you speed to the market. So like ODNR has gone through and like we have been challenged by Governor Kasich, it's how do we continuously evaluate our processes internally? Strip away what we don't need, build on what we do need to make it as efficient as possible. So again, this is just a common theme for us, but we're going to continue to evaluate, work with our industry partners, stakeholders, and others in the state to continue to do evaluation of all of our permitting so we can streamline those. We're already working on general permits for our compressor operations because that's a huge industry for us as well. And it also goes over into other parts of EPA. So the next slide you'll talk about, we also look at managing the solid waste. It's kind of a new and emerging issue. It's one of those touch points that you hear a lot of talk about. But we passed in House Bill 59. We really strengthened the regulatory framework statewide. And this was a great collaboration between the Department of Natural Resources, Ohio EPA, and our Department of Health, which really shares the regulatory structures around how we deal with drill cuttings, how we deal with naturally occurring radioactive material, and technically enhanced radioactive material. We've been doing a lot of stakeholder outreach on development of rules around that, but we have developed, I think, very progressive and yet flexible regulatory structure around how we categorize this material, how we then find opportunities for reuse and recycling of the material, and then the material that needs managed through the regulatory process in a landfill, we set up a structure that gives maximum flexibility for that. So we're in the early stakeholder outreach process, and if there's anybody that would like an opportunity to view that or provide us with comments, we'd be welcome those as well. One last and emerging issue for us, and it has somewhat to do with our past history in mineral extraction, is dealing with inadvertent return. We have a lot of pipeline activity, as David had said, we have a lot of pipeline activity going on to support our oil and gas drilling operation. A lot of that is in eastern Ohio. A lot of that's former areas that have been strip mined for coal and been reclaimed. We have a lot of that area that is unconsolidated material. When you see a lot of oil and gas pipeline operations come in and rather than do open cutting, in many cases they're using directional drilling, and they're obviously using drill muds and fluids to do that. It's an unconsolidated fill, and in many cases we're seeing these inadvertent returns of material to the surface. In some cases that's not so rare. It happens very localized, it's in very small quantities, it's not an uncommon practice. What we're seeing is just because of the unconsolidated fill, sometimes this material will come to the surface in areas you wouldn't ever expect nor in distances that you would ever expect. We're seeing half a mile or even farther away, we're seeing inadvertent returns. Oftentimes it happens in areas exactly that you're trying to avoid, wetlands and streams. We're seeing those impacts. So we're trying to understand it. We've had a great collaboration with the HDD industry as well as the oil and gas industry to come together, help understand the unique geology and geography that we've got, and help develop and change some of their best management practices. And we're starting to get a handle on being very successful in developing some of these new practices. And I think it's a great opportunity. We could have easily just said, we're going to regulate this, and we're going to set up a new regulatory structure on how to really bring this back into control. What we did was reach out to industry, you all and your counterparts in the room, as well as the industry, and come up with a strategy that we really think is working. And one last thing I'll mention is we've got a 401, speaking, if I just cover the water issues for a minute here, we've got the 401 program, which is regulating impacts to wetlands and streams in Ohio. We have a 401 certification, basically a general permit. We're going through, there was one specific for oil and gas. We're going through and revising that. It's again open for comment. What we're trying to do is strip away all of the, what I call them arbitrary deadlines. There were a lot of arbitrary, unique attributes to that automatically discounted you from being able to get a general permit through our 401 program. And they just didn't seem to make sense, nor did they offer, frankly, in my view, stronger environmental protection. We'll be out here at the end of the year with a final rule that will allow, again, not only just flexibility and speed to the market, but also environmental protective measures relative for impacts to streams and wetlands. We also think it's going to help us with the issues about inadvertent returns, because in some cases they were doing HDD drilling to avoid some of the issues in getting an individual permit through the 401 program. So we think by fixing both pieces of that, we'll end up with not only more an efficient process, but something that is equal, if not more, environmentally protective. So with that, we're happy to be with you today. This is a great team, and as you've talked with Rick over the years, as well as our folks, Governor Kasich drives us to significant teamwork, and we're happy to be part of that. And I think you'll hear from Chief Flowers here on just how far that teamwork goes. But it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you.